in January and February when the call came out that there was the threat to collective bargaining. I mean, who could miss that? I mean, I was drawn into that. And I thought we were really on a 20, 30-year trajectory where government was a strong, positive force that was bringing justice to the community. And suddenly, I began to understand that this isn't an accident, this is a systematic assault on the very fundamental values or right. How do you stop this?
I'd like to see a presence like that in Riverwest represented by all people in the neighborhood. I sort of like to think of this effort as actually sort of a kind of a throwback. Neighborhood or retail politics as they used to be. It used to be ward organizations. But what they did is they made sure that everybody was informed of who was running and what were the issues and stuff like that. And it was all neighborhood people. It wasn't paid canvassers. It wasn't out-of-towners or whatever. It was your neighbor coming over and going like, you do remember there's an election coming up and remember what's up here.
But ultimately, I think it's the neighbor-to-neighbor knocking on doors that is the best form of canvassing. I mean, this is a model. This is ideally the model. It's more effective if you can get people in the neighborhood to knock on doors of their neighbors. That's certainly the ideal form.
This is my favorite part. We started in houses, we really knew the people, and that helped us get our feet on the ground. And then it was just natural. Okay, yeah, we knock on the next door. Oh yeah. So that was good.
One neighbor that I have known for 10 years since I moved into the neighborhood said, "You're doing this by yourself? You're like, there's no sponsors, there's nobody behind you?" I mean, they were just blown away by the fact that this is a neighbor-to-neighbor thing with no overt organization other than our own desire to get Walker kicked out of office.
So this was the first time that I really got to talk with neighbors who didn't share my skin tone. And so Riverwest, that's one of the reasons I like Riverwest so much. It's one of the few places in town where there is the actual possibility of people being integrated together.
Are there maybe 12 houses on both sides of the street, roughly? Duplexes included.
Right.
So maybe we found about half the people home, or at least they responded. And the ones that didn't, we left a little, try to personalize the note with a neighbor, sorry we missed you, just wanted to make sure you knew, just something handwritten and then in the doorway there, so hopefully that was...
And meeting new young families that normally, because of our age difference and where we live, we wouldn't get to know them. You know, they're not on our radar to, be with. And then to explain to them the voting, how important it is. And I was disappointed a couple times by people who would never vote, but more than not, I was happy that I did stop and got to talk to somebody and that they were going to go out and vote. And then I did get to know who they were, and I also invited them to other things that are going on in the neighborhood that are important to me. So that I enjoyed it a lot.
When I walked with a group of people, 8 people my age, to the polling place, and I saw a dozen more people that I knew there, and we all kind of voted at the same place at the Pierce School. And I brought 2 people to vote that were very against voting at all. One had never voted before ever, and he's 33 years old. And the other one, he just doesn't like voting. But I talked him into voting, and I think for local elections, though, it seems like the younger crowd tends to vote more than they do presidential.
Because a suggestion I would make to somebody who's considering becoming more active is make a small commitment. Take your block. and you know, tiptoe in, and that may well be satisfying enough that you want to go further, but it's not overwhelming and intimidating.
I always saw getting people to the polls as my main focus, and giving them information as my main focus. I think sometimes, you know, we registered people and they barely knew what they were doing. They barely knew why they were registering or what they were registering for.
We needed some way to start the conversation, and came up with this idea of a little yellow slip that was just a little thing you could hand out to somebody and say, "Can I give this to you?" And the minute they'd say yes, they'd want to know what it was.
I am with Riverwest Votes with Mary. I'm for Mary. Yes. Yeah, and then there's also all this stuff about the different ballot initiatives, because a lot of people don't really understand those. So.
It's a really good idea to hand these out since they're so darn confusing every time in the ballot.
That's true.
And there was, in fact, one guy I talked with who was saying, I'm college educated, I can figure. I said, no, I'm not saying that. No, I said, we're just trying to make it simple, not because we think you're simple, but because we think your lives are very complex.
So I think the sample ballot helped in the little sheets that we took. I heard from people that told me they took them to the poll with them. So they had them at the poll. My son was one of them. He forgot what he was going to vote for, and then he remembered it was in his pocket.
People find them really valuable. It's something really useful, more valuable than just a particular glossy candidate thing, of which, you know, many of these doors had them fallen out. They were all over the place.
I found people who threw away all the propaganda, were really with us on the issues, and didn't know who the correct candidate, who the good candidate was. Right. I think a lot of people really appreciated seeing the ballot, but also having us clarify. People who are good people and believe in Riverwest and believe in community. I think we were able to offer that.
I think it's because we're neighbors that they trust us. We live in the same neighborhood. We're not coming from Whitefish Bay, or Oak Creek, to tell them how to vote. So when they see us at the door, they see us as neighbors they've seen walking around the neighborhood, maybe walking our dogs, taking our kids or grandkids now places. We've been known in the neighborhood, so when we say, and we live around the corner, they trust that. Here's someone that lives in my neighborhood. They put up the same kind of stuff I put up in this neighborhood. We love this neighborhood. We're trying to do better things about it. Our thoughts on it, on how we vote.
I had no illusions that this was going to be a lot of work and a lot of effort. And I said, I've got to do this. But really feeling that I'm engaged, I'm doing something productive, I feel good about it, and I don't dread it. That was my mantra. All right, if I'm going to do a lot of work out there, you might as well have fun doing it.
I think having the party here was really great, actually, that you did that.
And it was busy, so I mean, I was running, which is always good. You had a really nice cross section of, I thought, the good entertainment, and also you always spice it up with local politicians. I think that's always a good plan, because it then reminds people of the community aspect, and these are people representing us at various levels through government. So, I thought you guys did a good job on that overall.
Good.
vigilance, that don't take what you have or what we fought long and hard for granted. Voting rights, education, now health care and the like. These are long, hard fought victories that could be lost overnight. For the generations that are coming, you've got to stay vigilant. You've got to watch this carefully, because you can't take this for granted.
This kind of effort needs to be repeated, and it needs to be expanded, and it needs to be integrated so that everywhere somebody turns, the message is clear.
Or a presence.
Here it is.
In terms of local elections, people would be office holders would feel that they would want to stay on our good side.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
I remember my mother telling me that that people joined a union, they elected a union steward, and then they kind of dropped back into the shadows, and they just kind of let the union speak for them and take over for them. And it used to make her angry. She used to say, you can't do that. You have to keep voting. You have to keep coming to union meetings. You have to stand up and talk when you think something's not right. You have to be part of it. Otherwise, you'll end up with leaders who don't give a damn about you anymore and who just are in it for themselves. And that's what happened. And the same thing is true for political struggle. You can't just leave it to so-called leaders to do your work for you. You have to be there. You have to hold them responsible, and you have to hold their feet to the fire.